At 4 o'clock yesterday, the best defensive lineman in the state of Mississippi looked at Alabama, looked at Ole Miss, and, well, he kind of chose to stay home.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, everydayers? I'm Stephen Willis. Welcome back to Locked On Ole Miss. Big one, Mitchell Turner, the number 6 defensive lineman in America, just committed to Ole Miss over Alabama, and I'll tell you why. It was one that Ole Miss wasn't really supposed to get, and then I'm going to put it on tape. You'll see 41 tackles for loss as a junior and a film breakdown that'll show you exactly what type of monster Pete Golding has landed. And we will finish with 2 dominoes that could fall next. Caden Moss and Alvin Mosley, because the dead period is not slowing this class down. Let's get started on that. Let's see. Alabama led for this kid like 90%, according to the prediction matrix, for months, including this month. Then Pete Golding and Randall Joyner went to work and ran the tide out of Mississippi. This commitment, it kind of changes the class. At 4 o'clock Central Time yesterday afternoon, the best defensive lineman in the state of Mississippi looked at Alabama, looked at Ole Miss, and kind of chose to stay home. Mitchell Turner is a rebel, and I need you to understand something. Stay with me here. This is not just another commitment. This is Mitchell Turner out of Louisville, a 4-star defensive lineman, the number 6 defensive lineman in the entire country, the number 2 overall player in the state of Mississippi, and the number 60 prospect nationally. This is a blue chip, big time, everybody wanted him type of recruit. And for months, this recruitment had one name written all over it, and that was Alabama. And, it makes sense that it would be that way as well. So here's how close that Ole Miss came to losing this athlete. Alabama hadn't led the prediction machine for this kid at 90%. Nick Saban's old shop with Freddie Roach, everybody remembers Freddie, doing the recruiting, had Turner on the official visit to Tuscaloosa back in May. And just about every insider in the country had him penciled into the Crimson Tide at that point. He looked gone. He looked exactly like the kind of in-state star that used to leave Mississippi without a second thought, if we're going to be honest about it. Then Pete Golding and Randall Joyner kind of went to work. Turner took his official visit in Oxford. They got him on campus in early June, and the Rebels knocked it out of the park. You know the old saying, if you don't want to go to Ole Miss, don't visit it. Well, that happened. Turner visited Ole Miss, fell in love with the place. They knocked it out of the park. And on the 19th, 3 different rivals expert flipped their predictions to Ole Miss on the very same day. The machine swung from 90% Alabama all the way to 90+% Ole Miss. It was pretty interesting to see. And yesterday afternoon at 4 o'clock, it became official. Mitchell Turner is staying home. Now, the flip side of that, literally the flip side of that, has been Jarvis Shoemaker flipped to Colorado, who is another 4-star big-time defensive tackle in the state of Mississippi. Now, let me make this perfectly clear. He shut down his recruitment like 10 hours before he flipped his commitment. I don't know if I'm going to jump on this one way or another. I think he ultimately ends up signing at Ole Miss when it's all said and done. And I think it's going to be one of those things where he ultimately plays football at Ole Miss. But he did flip, and that's important to talk about as well. But that's another reason why this Turner commitment matters so much. It's more than just one name on the list. You and I say it every single week. The state of Mississippi always produces defensive linemen. And if you want to win in the SEC, you need to start keeping them home. And while Golding has kept one of the best ones at home, and he did it by beating Alabama straight up inside the state of Mississippi for a Mississippi kid. I think Mississippi State was a little bit involved there as well. Being from Louisville, it's kind of its proximity to Starkville. That would make sense. But this is a statement that a Pete Golding, he's planting a flag and telling Tuscaloosa, yeah, it's not going to be the same way as it used to be. You're not going to be able to just waltz in and take ours anymore. And he's not doing it alone. Listen, Turner becomes the second defensive lineman in this 2027 class with Jamarcus Pittman. That's a load. In-state anchored defensive line haul, although Pittman's from Memphis. But you get my point. It's right down the road. It's understandable the context here because On3's own scouting director said it out loud. The state of Mississippi this year is absolutely stacked in the defensive line, with 3 different players ranked inside the Rivals top 10 nationally at their positions. 3 in one state, in one class. That is the type of in-state talent that when it leaves, goes off and finds somebody else, they usually win a good bit. And that's one of the things that we're going to be watching the Shoemaker situation with, because that's a really good, high-rated defensive tackle that is going off potentially. But Pete Golding's making sure that it doesn't necessarily happen. There's not a lead. He's fencing in the border if he gets somebody like Mitchell Turner, the top defensive lineman in the state of Mississippi. Stack this group right next to the offensive line that we've been telling you about all month, and the picture starts to get very clear very fast. But hold that thought, okay? Because in segment 2, I'm going to put on the tape and I'm going to show you exactly what type of player Ole Miss just landed. And yes, it is special. So quick one, everydayers. How big is beating Alabama straight up in the state of Mississippi for a Mississippi kid? Bigger than the ranking? Drop it down in the comment section below. If it's really, really good, I will read it out loud on the show, but I have my eyeballs in the comments as well. So thank you very much for making Locked On the first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. The rankings tell you he's good, right? The tape tells you why. 41 tackles for loss as a junior. And get off the rest of the SEC is going to hate. We're going to do a little bit of a film breakdown. All of that is coming up next. Hey, running a business should not feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that were never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them communicate with each other. That is where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales to accounting to inventory to marketing, everything works in one place, helping your team move faster, stay organized, and focused on growing the business instead of managing software. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone working towards the same goal. And that's true in sports just like it is in business. You've heard it before. The one thing that really stands out is how this organization got everyone pulling in the same direction with the hiring of Keith Carter, for instance. It isn't just a great player or a coach. It's a coordinated effort across the entire organization that makes them successful. They could be talking about Ole Miss right now. Great organizations win because operations matter, and that is why you should get Odoo. Try for free today at odoo.com/lockedon. That's odoo.com/lockedon. Hey, do us a favor. Subscribe, like, and comment on the video. Subscribe to the podcast on whichever audio podcast you're listening to and give it a 5-star review. It costs nothing, but it keeps all of this free. Get your daily Ole Miss fix completely ad-free by joining the Everydayer Club today. Start your 7-day free trial right now and get closer to your team without all of the interruptions. Click on the link in the show notes below or go to lockedonolemess.supercast.com to claim your free trial. So one thing that I'm really interested about is looking at the film of this player, because he is a really good player, like a special player that pops off of the video to you. And Mitchell Turner's tape itself is just filthy. It's nasty. So stay with me, because the number I'm about to give you is one of the most absurd stat lines I've ever seen from a high school defensive lineman, okay? As a junior, Mitchell Turner put up 103 tackles. As a defensive lineman, that's important to remember. He's 285 pounds. He had 41 tackles for loss. He had 15 and a half sacks, 41 tackles for loss. Let me say that again so it sinks all the way in. 41 times last year, Mitchell Turner blew up the play in the other team's backfield before it had a chance to develop. He didn't just play in the backfield, he kind of lived there. So what does he actually look like on tape? Charles Power, the scouting director at On3, saw this coming from, and I pulled a lot of this straight from On3's evaluation of him. Charles Power called him a dynamic, coordinated defensive lineman who makes plays behind the line of scrimmage at a high rate. That's kind of a dub, but okay. He has an outstanding first step and great instincts, phenomenal pad level and leverage. He stays low, and he's tough enough to block off the ball, and he has a high-end lateral agility, the kind that, in their words, makes offensive linemen whiff in a phone booth. That's weird that you hear about phone booth quickness about a defensive lineman. He has a compact base, natural balance, and a bend. He hunts plays down, so he can also anchor and eat blocks as a run defender. Over at 247 Sports, Gabe Brooks says the same thing. An attacking frontline defender who gets on top of blockers quickly and with power, with the suddenness of a zigzag to redirect his way loose. Now, I'm going to be honest with you, because the everydayers don't necessarily do fluff what's going on. Turner is not a measurable monster. He's not somebody that is going to go to the combine and win. He's 6'1.5", 285 pounds, with arms a tick under 33 inches, okay? On paper, that is undersized for a top defensive lineman. He's not going to win the get off the bus contest, for instance. But here's the thing. That doesn't matter, because he plays a lot bigger than what his frame is. And the comparisons tell that exact story. On3 says he reminds him of Jerson Newton, the Illinois disruptor who went in the second round of the 2024 NFL draft. Same height, same undersized, but unblockable profile. Kind of reminds me a little bit bigger Isaac Gross, and that's a good place to be. And our crossover with Brian Smith, the Florida football scout, Brian compared his first step and his hand and foot quickness to Aaron Donald. Now, nobody is promising you that Aaron Donald is walking through the doors, but when scouts keep reaching for names like that, it tells you something. It tells you the type of player that they're talking about. And here is why the fit is perfect. Remember, our biggest defensive complaint from last season, Ole Miss couldn't get to the quarterback without blitzing, because their defensive back was so poor, they didn't want to put them on an island, so they needed to get pressure from the front. They needed a natural four-man pass rush. Mitchell Turner provides exactly that. He's a guy who lets Pete Golding drop 7 into coverage, or 8, and still get home with the front. Hand him to Randall Joyner, the best defensive line developer I can remember, one of the best recruiters on this staff, and you're talking about a future problem for the entire rest of the SEC. That's the player. That's why this one matters. And that is an example of exactly why you should be paying attention to this. Really interesting stuff. So, film room question, everydayers. 41 tackles for loss, 15 and a half sacks at 6'1.5". Who does Mitchell Turner remind you of? On 3 says Jerson Newton. Brian Smith said Aaron Donald. Tell me what you see on the tape, and just send this to every dayer that might be sleeping on this defense this year. Remember, we're free and available on all the podcast apps and on YouTube, and a special hello to the everydayers who make this show what it is. Your team every day. Turner is in the boat. So who is next? Who is going to stand out? 2 huge on 3 numbers and one that's almost a done deal. The next domino's coming up. Who do we think it's going to be? We'll talk about that next. So Mitchell Turner is in the boat, and the question every everydayer is asking right now is who is next, because that's what football fans always want to know. Okay, we did this one thing. What's the next thing? It's always about that. So I've got 2 names for you, and the prediction machine says both of them might be Rebels very, very soon, as in a couple of days this week. So stick with me, because I think these are almost done deals at this point. Could change. It's recruiting. You saw what happened with Jarvis Shoemaker 2 nights ago. He shut down his recruitment. The next day he flipped to Colorado. So anything can happen on stuff like this. Remember what I say about recruiting. The most important part is to finish in the top 2 on every single player. It's always good to get the player, but you at least want to get into the top 2 first of all. So that's one of the reasons I'm not going to be worried too much about any of this. So those 2 names that I have for you, stick with me, because I think one of these is almost a done deal. But we're going to start with the headliner, Caden Moss, okay? He is the number 1 player in the entire state of Mississippi. He's a 4-star knocking on that 5-star door, interior offensive lineman out of Jackson Academy. He's the number 3 interior lineman in the whole country. He took his official visit to Oxford in June, on June 19th. Just happened. And right now on 3's prediction machine has Ole Miss sitting at 88.6% to land him, way ahead of Ohio State and way ahead of Alabama. John Garrison and Pete Golding, they're closing. They're doing what they're supposed to do. And just think about what this would mean. Land Moss, you already have Antonio Kiefer. And on the same week you've signed the best defensive lineman in the state, you would also lock down the best offensive lineman in the state. We talked about trench warfare for Pete Golding and how they're emphasizing it. This is just an example of that. Both lines, both best in the state, both staying home. But here's one that might actually beat Moss to the punch. Alvin Mosley, a 4-star wide receiver out of Alameda Crawford, high in Rocheron, Texas. That's right outside Houston. He's 6'2", and this is a kid that Ole Miss reached all the way into the state of Texas to go find and get and all of that. And the machine on this one is almost off the charts, by the way. On 3 has Ole Miss at 96.4%. 96. On 3's own Ben Garrett reported yesterday that Ole Miss is pushing to close with receivers coach LaDamian Washington leading the charge. That's about as close to a lock as this thing gets before the kid actually stands up and says the words of where he is going. So here's the big picture, everydayers. And it's the part that the casual fan keeps missing. And to think about the range on this thing for a second, Mitchell Turner, an in-state hammer on the defensive line, Caden Moss, the crown jewel of the entire state, and Alvin Mosley, a speed receiver that Ole Miss flew all the way into Houston to pull out of Texas. That is one staff in America recruiting its own home base and reaching outside of its borders at the very same time and winning at both. They're doing both well. This recruiting class has been ridiculous this whole period. This dead period is supposed to be slowing recruiting down. It feels like it's picking up after the official visits happened over the last couple of weeks. It's doing a complete opposite spin for Ole Miss Turner yesterday, Moss at 88%, Mosley at 96%. This class, it's kind of not crawling, it's snowballing. And that's a good thing if you're an Ole Miss fan. Because one thing when it comes to high school recruiting especially is you definitely want the snowball feeling going on to where everything seems to add to it. That's how you keep moving up and moving up the rankings, doing things like that. Now, I will always keep it honest with you. A percentage is not a signature and nothing is official until the kid posts it himself. And as you saw from Jarvis Shoemaker, it could get weird at any particular moment. That's fine. That's just recruiting. But when the recruiting machine is already sitting at 96% and the beat reporters are using the words close, you kind of lean in, you start to pay attention to what is going on. It'll be interesting to see, especially I talk to people inside the sources. They do not feel great about DGG, despite what you hear. Now, like I said, it's recruiting, and that's going on. I do think that Ole Miss is going to try and pivot into Tykees for the remainder of the next 5 months. That's just my opinion on that. But for the most part, recruiting is going absolutely phenomenally to the point where it's like, hey, we get this side of this and we get the transfer portal and we have a good team and all of that. Everything is kind of coming up Millhouse for Ole Miss. So do me one favor, subscribe, hit the bell so that you don't miss it when these things go final. And tell me down in the comments, who commits first? Is it Caden Moss or is it Alvin Mosley? We will absolutely see you down there. Here's the deal, everydayers. This class is snowballing in the middle of the dead period. What you're going to do is you're going to want to be here when the next one goes final. And we kind of might have a surprise for this weekend. We'll put it out whenever we have more information. So do me a favor, subscribe, hit the bell, and tell me below who commits first, Caden Moss or Alvin Mosley. We're tracking every one of these together because, heck, that's half the fun of what is going on. And as always, tell me in the comments what you're seeing because the everydayers are usually ahead of the national media on this type of stuff. You're not the smartest audience in all of ball for no reason. Tomorrow, we're going to keep it rolling. But today, Mitchell Turner is a rebel over Alabama. The film says Ole Miss landed a problem for the entire SEC, and Caden Moss and Alvin Mosley, well, they could be next. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Ole Miss ad-free plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonolemess.supercast.com to join the club. For those of you on video, we're going to send you on over to the first ever 24/7 National Locked On Podcast Network YouTube channel and audio. Make sure you make your second listen either Locked On College Football or Locked On SEC. Both of them do a fantastic job. Subscribe, hit the bell, all of that stuff, and we will see you tomorrow, everydayers. Hotty toddy.